Welcome everyone to the SDGs Lead, which is a series of conversations with prominent SDGs changemakers worldwide. My name is Karina Radchenko. I am the founder of this project, in framework of which we try to amplify voices of changemakers and trailblazers worldwide in order to facilitate and to empower each other on our path towards sustainable, innovative, and peaceful world. Today, it's a great honor to have the chance to cooperate and to communicate with the seasoned professionals, peace advocates from Australia. It's a great honor to welcome you on Zoom because peace as the 16th SDG is fundamental. I come from Ukraine, and unfortunately, my country is one of many red spots, hot spots on the map of the armed conflict in the world. And we can clearly understand that war has many negative consequences. No development is possible, and overall economic, social, migration, people leaving their homes, and so on, killings, which just deprives people of the fundamental right to life, which was proclaimed in the United Nations Universal Declaration for Human Rights. So this is fundamental. Like Shri Aurobindo once wrote that in order to reach peace, we should eradicate this spirit of war through substituting it with something positive and new mindsets. And you are creating these mindsets. So today with us, Dr. Rose Gwyther, geophysicist, musician, vice president of Just Peace, and national committee member of Independent and Peaceful Australia organization, Lenora O'Connor, primary teacher, and Just Peace member, as well as member of the United Nations Association in Queensland. And Annette Brownlie, Vice President of the United Nations Associations in Queensland. It's great that you have enormous experience. Thank you so much for this chance.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. Yeah.
Very welcome.
Yeah. Good. So if we can start with your path as individuals, because evidently this situation of stopping these conflicts and starting these conflicts start on the individual level, on our personal vision, motivation, and drivers, which impact us in our decisions. Do you remember that very moment where you started your path as SDGs advocates, and what motivates you to share your story also with other trailblazers, maybe young trailblazers who are already at the starting point of their path? So if you could share just in several sentences all your individual experiences.
Do you understand?
Okay. Well, I suppose, so I started the Youth Voices for Peace workshops, and they've become an annual event, and the workshops are sort of directed towards upper primary school students and high school students. And it all started because I had a concern, a personal sort of concern about what was happening within our world. And our very first workshop was in 2018. And I think it was probably towards the end of 2017 in the media we were hearing Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump threatening to use nuclear weapons against each other. And I just had this, personal concern thinking, we hear their voices within the media, but we don't really hear the voices of, just our global citizens, and we need to hear their voices about nuclear weapons, and so the workshop sort of evolved because of that personal concern, and I really wanted our young people to have a voice about nuclear weapons and nuclear disarmament, and so that's how these Youth Voices for Peace workshops started, and from a personal concern, and and what else to do?
I guess I go back a little bit earlier than that, in the sense that I was young during the Vietnam War, which was a big issue for people in Australia, because people were being conscripted to fight in that war. And it was a very emotional time, I guess, for people during that 1960s, when Australia was sending troops to Vietnam to fight against the Vietnamese. And so there grew a very big people's movement about that war. And that's really when I started looking at the issues of war and peace. And I've been involved, I guess, in the peace movement over that time. And then in 2001, when the Twin Towers attack occurred, and the United States announced that there was going to be a war on terror. And I think a lot of people were concerned that that's using a military approach to try and solve that problem would actually make things worse. And so some of us in Brisbane established a group called Just Peace, which Annette was also part of the group who initially established that. And that's really the group that's been active in Brisbane since about 2002, something like that. And so we connected with Lenora when you had this concern in 2018. We sort of mobilised some of the people who were involved in Just Peace to assist Lenora in getting those workshops together. So that's how my involvement in this has come about.
Yeah, so it's all started from individual concerns about this situation, and it's very, very important, because just yesterday I heard one podcast regarding this situation with the war on terror and the public opinions. It was very shocking factor that, for instance, initial supporters of this interventions in Afghanistan were very high, up to even I noticed it about 90%. But then when the war happened, of course, it was lower and lower, and now research was done again in 2015, and it was about only 45 up to 50% only who supported. So it's very important to focus on this compassion, on these individual voices for peace, like to break these mindsets, because it was also like civilians who supported this intervention initially, which is a very, very dramatic aspect.
Mm.
Well, that's very interesting, Karina. For myself, I've been a member of the United Nations Association for close on 20 years now, and I also manage a program within the association called the Peace and Security Program, which is a largely composed of young people. So I'm particularly interested in what you're doing. And I know that they're mostly students at university or people in that younger age group. And they're great to work with because they've got lots of energy and they're very, very interested in all the issues. We're just about to publish our latest newsletter, which if we've got your email address, I can send that to you so you've got a better idea of just the sort of activity that we have been involved in. But for myself, I think the United Nations is just so important. The problems that we face in the world are international problems, whether it's climate change or pandemics or the threat of nuclear war. We need to cooperate and we need to have that coordinated through an international body. I'm a big fan of Antonio Guterres. I think he's doing a fabulous job as the Secretary General. And, you know, it's the only way for us to move forward without the great tragedy of yet another world war. And your country, your grandparents will no doubt have the memory and the very deep knowledge of just how terrible that Second World War was. So, you know, that's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing this, because actually remembering is very important for our generation. And I have also looked through the website, both of Just Peace and also United Nations Association in Queensland. And I was very happy that there are opportunities for young people to get involved in these processes, and there are young ambassadors, young professionals. It's very important to change these mindsets. And as I've mentioned, hopefully there would be one day where a new generation, so this like public opinion service, we would have zero tolerance to war. I hope that, and it begins through such projects as you do. So I'm kindly asking you to share some more information about this wonderful Voices for Peace project. I know that for several years it targeted different aspects: nuclear disarmament, peace, environmental situation, climate action. Could you please give more details, probably some videos also?
Okay. Well, I'm happy to thank you for, you know, you've done your research, and thank you for your enthusiasm. And yeah, that's really great to hear your enthusiasm for the workshops, and that spurs us on to keep going. And but I can share you a little bit more about the workshops. So, as you know, like as you've mentioned, the first workshop focused on, you know, nuclear disarmament. Our second one focused on peace and climate action. Mm-hmm. And then our third one focused on peace and climate action and care for the land. And so the day, basically, I'll just give you a rundown of how the day actually works. So at the beginning of, well, the workshops are, first of all, they're held in a school, like in a high school, and each year different high schools have a turn of hosting the workshops. And at the start of the day, we have the students gather to listen to guest speakers speak about the different sustainable development goals. And then after our guest speakers speak, students have an opportunity to ask questions. And then after that, they break up into little groups, small groups, and they work with creative people to create a response to the Sustainable Development Goals. And so they have an opportunity to work with poets, and I know that they've worked with game developers. They work with you know, video makers. They work with drama experts and dance experts, and I think I've covered it. Oh, engineers as well. Mm-hmm. And they probably have about 2.5 hours to work with those creative people to create this artistic sort of response. And while they're working with the creative experts, there's discussion, and at the end of the day, we all gather together and the students present what they've created. And I just find, as a teacher, I find it really rewarding to see the students interacting with each other, and you know, see them interacting with the creative people, and they seem to be very engaged with the activity, and I find that very rewarding. And I just feel at the end of the day they have they seem to be a little bit more confident within themselves, and then confident, to go back to their schools and share what they did at their workshop. And I just find that very rewarding. And everyone who's involved with the workshops, they volunteer their own time. They're not being paid to do this. And I think that's amazing. They have this passion, and they want to share that passion with the students, and they're not being paid, and so.
Actually, it's so important to reveal this enthusiasm. I was also impressed with these pieces of video. You can show them, yes, in terms of these workshops, how everything went. I read the poem written by participants of the workshops, several authors, and it's great how minds come together. It's like synergy. And also in terms of arts, enormously impressive. We have also the project 100 Words for Peace, where we post voices of people on peace, on how to reach peace, what does it mean for them, participants from different countries. So hopefully, if of course there is like authorship agreement, we could publish specifying the names, this wonderful piece of arts, and also yours.
If you like, we could share. We have one of those short videos about one of the workshops. Would you like us to share it on this Zoom now?
It would be great for more people to see it, to convey this.
There's a couple of videos we thought we could share with you. The first one is about a 3 or 4 minute video about the workshop, which was based around peace and climate action. And then we also have a very short 1 minute video, which the students in their workshop made the first year about nuclear disarmament, which is a student-made workshop video, which is interesting. Would you like us to share those two?
It would be great.
Okay, let's
more people see it, more chances that people get inspired, and young people.
Okay. Well, let's just see if we can set it up.
Nuclear weapons. Destruction that could wipe out our world in seconds. This is not a short-term effect, rather an action which will have insidious ripple effects, decimating Mother Nature and leaving radioactive ash in the soil, destroying life for decades to come, wiping out all our hard years of work, and repeating history once again. The past is there for us to learn from, not to repeat. So how can we stop this problem and leave less burdens for generations to come? Now, you may think that you as a person in a world of 7 billion people can never make a difference. But all it takes is you as an individual, you who can change the world.
We do not own the land owns us. We come from Mother Earth, and that is something that permeates every decision that we make.
Today is a day about us, the young people of Australia, the future, gathering together to make a difference in our world, to have a voice. We have opportunity to be informed, to discuss and act upon the important, serious topic of peace and climate action.
The climate crisis is inherently conflict. Conflict between people, the environment. People could potentially lose their homes, their jobs, and even their lives in this crisis. The answer to this climate conflict, then, is peace. This is where you will come in today.
These events are so important for helping kids realise that they are a part of a bigger movement. It's really great to see and be in this environment where ideas are encouraged and kids are encouraged to express them and work together and discuss.
And I've always just been wondering what I can do, but it's just that feeling of feeling like selfless or like powerless to speak out against anything. And I feel like the program today has helped me to understand that I can voice out my opinions.
That link between peace and climate change for the students, the first thing is that we know that young people are very concerned about the whole environmental issues. They're also very concerned about the wars that are continuing on. And so this workshop is really an attempt to show them that by using art, you can actually have a voice collectively.
What we do is going to be ultimately what affects the future. Like what you say or what you do and what you teach us is going to change how we're going to take actions.
Well, this kind of workshop not only helps inspire other young people, because we have young speakers who set the scene for us, it inspires teachers because they can find ways and language and techniques.
The student voice and choice is a big part of it. So as a teacher, it's something we want to try and incorporate in the work in the classroom, but they're going to be of the future generation, our future leaders.
I believe our responsibility with the planet is certainly to take action, because we're the ones that are going to have to live with the world we're shaping today.
Be smarter than my generation, and be smarter, and we will help you however we can for a better future.
Doing something small to make a difference, it's the numbers that count. So even if you're one person doing something small, there's going to be tons of other people doing that, which create the big difference.
If we don't take action to climate change, we'll lose our entire future. And that's different to anything else we've ever lost, because there's no way to win it back.
So inspiring. And this phrase that smallest contributions matter, and this power of unity is also very important. When you initially formed this group and met each other and then united, may I ask you to elaborate a bit more on this power of partnership and finding the right people, because this project, as I understood, is also about the partnership between United Nations Association, Just Peace, IPAN, and schools.
Yeah. Obviously, the workshops wouldn't happen if we didn't have people partnering together, sharing their enthusiasm and. Have you got anything to share?
Well, the interesting that it came about through the United Nations Association, in that there were some young women from Mexico living in Australia who were in the United Nations Association, Valeria and Irini, and. When Lenora was talking at the United Nations Association about this concept of a project, they said, oh, well, we know some young artists in Brisbane. We think they might be interested in helping run workshops. And so we actually connected through them with half a dozen artists who actually then ran that first workshop, first projects workshops of art and poetry and dance and game development and so on. And those artists were so inspired by doing that project that they said, oh, we want to help next year. So they've actually come back each year to help with the same project with different group of students. There's been about 40 or 50 students have come along to that workshop for the day.
And what I like about the workshops is that there's so many different people from different cultures contributing to the workshop. And that just happened by chance. We didn't plan that. It just evolved that way. And I think it's wonderful, because it's what the UNAA is all about. And I think that's what makes the workshops extra special, because we do have people from different places from around the world, participating and volunteering their time. And it's truly like a multicultural sort of event. And I was quite excited to have students from the International Islamic College attend within this college is based in Brisbane. And for me, that was really, really special to have those students involved. because it gave them an opportunity to have a voice, particularly our, the young girls that spoke from the college. And yeah.
Absolutely, so great, like multicultural and different stakeholders. Annette, could you please also elaborate on this power of partnership, as I know that United Nations also actively promotes partnership and this kind of intercultural dialogue also on local level?
Yeah, for sure. And your work that you do is all about partnerships, isn't it? So partnerships for advancing innovative sustainability. And it would be good to connect you and your team with people here in Australia, in Brisbane, who are also working in that, with that goal of partnerships. And certainly partnerships is part of the SDGs. And I guess one of the things that became very clear to us in exploring the SDGs through the workshops with high school students was how pivotal SDG 16 is to achieving, as you just pointed out, really, we cannot achieve any of the other SDGs in a war scenario. We need to have at least freedom from war in order to have the cooperation we need to address poverty, care of the land, climate, and the rest of the goals, really. So, very good to have connected with you, and we'd be very happy to continue that connection. Yeah. I think you may have noticed that there is another group called Young Professionals in the United Nations Association. And again, they're all very switched on young people, and they're always looking for a speaker to speak at public events that they run. So it might be something that we approach you if you would be interested to speak to that group.
Absolutely, I would be happy to do so, because evidently, like, this intercultural dialogue is important. Our motto from this project is we learn the world, we discover the world, and learn from each other through sharing stories, experiences, practices, overall communication. And in terms of 100 Words for Peace project, where we collected opinions, I will also send the link of people. We also did a quite similar thing in terms of bringing people, school children and their parents together, and they made a kind of pictures, pieces of arts, what does peace mean for them. And then we brought it, it was the school here in Donetsk region, in Kramatorsk city of Ukraine, where I'm now. And then we shared it. It's also great, like where parents are involved. As I understood, you also like involve parents as well, like to preserve this intergeneration dialogue. Could you please also elaborate on this?
I like the idea how you invite parents as well and have parents involved too. That's really,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I had an experience working on environmental issues in the 1990s. And what we realised is that small children teach their parents. And, it's just so true. If you teach the children about good environmental practices, they will insist that their parents follow it. And I guess similarly with learning skills and practices around all the elements that go to create peace. And they are many, of course, but cooperation and respect for others is very much, the starting points, aren't they?
Annette, you should probably tell Karina about the Youth Peace Parliament project that Just Peace ran over a number of years.
Oh, it would be very interesting also.
It was fantastic. We ran it for 5 years, but then we just ran out of steam because it was a huge thing to organise. But, you know, when the Iraq War started, and in Australia, it was very much condemned, the Iraq War. I'm not sure whether it was the same. From what you say, it sounded as though in Ukraine that generally people supported it, but not here. There was strong opposition to the Iraq War right from the very beginning. In fact, you know, it is the one war in history where the world turned out to say, no, don't go there, before a war started. It is historic in that respect. And during that time, I worked with a man who was very keen to bring communities together around peace and the United Nations on the International Day of Peace. So it was not long after the International Day of Peace had been declared to be on the 21st of September every year. Jeremy Gillies, I don't know whether you know him. He's an English man who lobbied around the world to get the General Assembly to agree that instead of it being a different day each year, it would be the 21st of September each year. And as a result of that, we wanted to work with younger people, and we decided to hold this Youth Peace Parliament in the Parliament House of the state of Queensland. We were fortunate to get permission to go ahead with that. It was wonderful experience for the young people, because they actually were sitting in the Parliament House and they were debating issues, but it was all about peace. So we ran that for 5 years, and it was, you know, it was really, I'm sure many of those young people today, they'd be now, you know, in their 30s, probably early 30s, their experiences still live with them. In fact, I have noticed a couple of the young people, I've noticed their names in the media as journalists. So that is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really multi-amplifying effect, as I like to call it. When one seed makes the whole flowers, many flowers, like just one seed in one person, and then it disseminates. Regarding the statistics, it was solely based on the US population. It was like statistics not covering Ukraine and other countries, but it's very important, like to cultivate this compassion further, and such projects like you do really help to change this negative mindsets into very, very positive ones. So the voices of peace advocates are more heard. There are some challenges with these projects, like probably from this understanding of challenges perspective, there would be a kind of advice for people who want to start how to overcome these barriers, if there are any.
The main challenges, you know, I think the main challenges are just, well, to maintain your inspiration. Actually, just looking at that little video kind of renewed in me inspiration to keep going, because it was so rewarding and wonderful to see, like you say, the flowers blooming in those young people's minds, to see that they were not only learning information, but they were doing it together, and they were expressing it through these creative mechanisms, through these creative channels. I think that's what sets it apart, this Youth Voices for Peace, is the combination of receiving knowledge or information, but then processing that in the group and expressing it through a creative medium. So I'm not sure whether it happens anywhere else around the world, but I think it is a magic sort of formula really to use. What do you think?
I think one of the challenges is that school curriculums, and probably the same where you are very crowded with a lot of things that you know, governments want teachers to teach, and so peace is generally not part of that curriculum. So that when you're trying to bring peace issues to young people, you have to find spaces within that curriculum for that to happen. And we found that in the sense that a lot of teachers are very enthusiastic about these sorts of issues. And so the teachers who were enthusiastic gave up their time to help with these. But of course, teachers generally are very busy with their own work and it's a very demanding job. And Lenora knows all about that. She's a year 2 teacher at a primary school. And so that's one of the challenges, is to sort of bring this to young people in their own world, which is in their schooling, so that it's seen as a normal part of their life, basically. And I think that's an important part of what we achieved with that project. But it is a challenge to make that happen, because you have to talk to teachers and you have to talk to parents and make sure that the parents are happy for their children to be involved in this sort of project. So it doesn't happen. It only happens with quite a lot of work from a lot of people who put some their own time into that. But it's very rewarding when you do that.
It is.
That's what we've learned from this project.
Yeah, the challenge is having the energy and the drive to keep going with it. Which is what you were saying, Annette. But after seeing the video, you feel re-energized again to continue. And that's a challenge. Just having the energy and the drive to find that energy and drive to keep going. But when you do the workshop and you're just exhausted, everyone's exhausted at the end of the day, but just seeing, like I mentioned before, when you see the students so engaged and feeling so confident, they appear to be confident within themselves, and that spurs you on and gives you the energy and the drive to keep going. It's their reactions and how, on the day to what's being presented to them on the day of the workshop,
What about you, Karina? What are you doing in Donetsk, and how are things in Donetsk right now?
Oh, I would say quite complicated, from different perspectives. People in some cities were recently affected by some attacks. And so overall, when even we speak about long-term period, because our conflict was started in 2014, but still for people from that areas, there are lots of IDPs. Overall, we have about, it's just official statistics, but about 40,000 of people affected, which is a very, very significant number. And overall, I believe that on this school level, that's why we started collecting these opinions of peace, to make understand that from every country, even countries which are in the state of war, for real people, like for citizens, peace is equally important. So it's like trying to look from another perspective and trying to empower this dialogue also in terms of women, because there are lots of women who are internally displaced persons, which is quite a challenge with all these mechanisms. But let us hope that it will be ended. But I think we cannot speak about peace even if one or two hotspots on this global conflict track remain. We should speak more comprehensively and generally. So what you do is very inspiring, and I would be happy to promote such approaches also here in Ukraine. And I had conversation with lectures for students, young diplomats who are studying in the Institute of International Relations, my alma mater. And when we talked about the key like to reach peace globally with these students, children. One of the key points, youth, women engagement, and also, of course, is education. Like they would be happy if it would be included in the curriculum. It's very, very meaningful. So thank you so much.
Really
so inspiring.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah, I think one of the positive things that's come out of this terrible pandemic that the world's faced is that we've learnt to actually communicate around the world in a way we didn't before. And so this Zoom that we're now talking on has become a way of life for a lot of people to communicate much more widely than we were able to before. And so it's wonderful that we can talk to you and that, we can ask you to address a meeting of people around Australia, for example. That's really a step forward, I think, in terms of bringing people together around the world.
If I may also ask questions for our viewers, several questions remain. Ros, from your perspective as a geophysicist, could you please elaborate on this aspect of environment and war effects for people to understand, testing of nuclear weapons, which are likely to lead to the tectonic plates changes, and also the situation in some countries where flora and fauna significantly went down due to war, to increase this kind of awareness of these linkages between war and environment and peace and environment as well.
I think that's really critical, and I think people who work in that field of looking at the environment are aware that there is a whole range of environmental destructions that we're seeing, and that, well, I guess that's one of the really inspiring things, is that that's what young people, I think, around the world are taking up. They're actually talking about that, and they're saying that it's time we need to do something serious about that. And the awareness has come from maybe from scientists, people with my sort of background who've actually looked at the state that the atmosphere and the environment are in, and have come up with information about the sort of problems that we're seeing. But that information on itself doesn't change anything. It really needs everyday people to take up those sorts of challenges and be active around them. And I think that's what's happening now. That's what's, I think, really inspiring from a scientific background, is that the science that's been developed is now being sort of communicated to everyday young people, and they're taking those challenges up. So I'm really inspired from my background as a scientist, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, these connections of science and creating these linkages are very, very important. Thank you for mentioning the role of science here.
Myself, one of the things that I've looked at in the past is that science has generally tended to be inwardly focused, looking on the sort of problems that it's dealing with. But there's always been a movement amongst scientists to try and link science to social concerns and to the sort of social issues that come out of that scientific thinking. And so for me, that's been one of the sort of motive forces of my life, really, is that science needs to be connected with everyday life. And that's something that really we need to change in our science education as well, so that people actually learn that you can't do science as a separate entity. It has to actually be connected with the world around us to be useful.
Yeah, and I think educators are starting to realise that now. To connect science with, the world, what you were saying. Yeah.
If we could make the scientists lead this world and also educations in terms of leading, like in terms of policy, affecting policies, because one of the key gaps also, according to some researchers, is that the scientists are not heard enough in terms of their practical implementation of their advices, of their like service. It's really, for me, I'm also like PhD student, so for me it's vitally important that the scientists would be heard. Annette, Lenora, one specific question to you as women. How do you feel in terms of women contributing to peacekeeping processes? What is special about this women involvement, women leaderships? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, obviously, I think as a woman myself, I feel it is very important. And it's wonderful that I think society is more aware of women, you know, having a voice and having their voices being heard. And and I believe in equality for all, regardless of whether you're a woman or a man, you know, equality for all. That's my personal sort of belief. Yeah.
Well, I think it's been well recognised in the United Nations that the role of women in peacemaking, it's a high priority now to engage women in any of the resolution of in conflict zones. There's an expectation that there will be women at the table. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that in places like Afghanistan, where women are largely now excluded from any positions of power. And that is a great tragedy, just what has happened there. But I think it's interesting here to see that the peace movement is largely led by women. I think you'd agree, Ross, wouldn't you? It's sort of it comes from, I suppose, just that sort of close connection with life as a mother, as women who have children. It's not to say that men don't have that relationship as well, but there is something really innate, I think, in women that makes them seek out peaceful resolution to conflicts, large or small. So, yeah, go women.
Thank you for sharing your personal perspectives and overall this wonderful project. I hope to keep in touch and as for our viewers, last but not the least point is sharing your voice, also voice for peace and message to the world leaders, to the change makers worldwide on how to reach peace, just to reveal your inspiration and to make it disseminate further through our globe, so it will be fully peaceful one day. Like your feelings.
Thank you very much, Karina, and to all your colleagues, friends, family, viewers of this little video. We would wish a speedy resolution to the conflict that you have had to endure now for 7 years. That's a very long time, and the disruption in life. And if there's anything we can do to demonstrate our support for what you're going through, please let us know.
And I think everyday people really want a peaceful life themselves, and I think it's up to us to give the message to political leaders to listen to the people. That's a critical thing that we need to be working on. Give the people a voice.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Lenora, what is your vision on this?
I mean, I agree with what Annette and Ross and yourself are saying, and being a teacher and an educator, I think it's so important that that children discover peace within themselves, firstly, and once they discover that peace within themselves, then they can share that peace with other people, within their homes, and then hopefully that spreads to, local community, and then it spreads further. But I think for peace to happen, I think, you need to have inner peace before peace can actually happen on a global sort of level. And I just hope, like I said, as an educator, that you try to guide those young people that you're teaching, guide them in trying to discover their own peace that they have within themselves, and empower them to be peacemakers.
Wonderful messages. Thank you so much for them. And overall, once again, thank you for the amazing work that you are doing, because it's critically valuable, not only for countries affected by war, overall for the whole planet, as we are all humans and we all want to live in peace. Thank you so much for sharing this project. I hope for further cooperation and also from our side that we could support its further dissemination and application of these practices. Because seeing the eyes and feedbacks from the students on the workshop day, from these videos that you've shown, and also from some other pieces of videos that were available online and I watched, it's very, very vital. Like these smiling faces, it's a hope for the whole world that everything will be peaceful one day. Step by step efforts, not so easy road, but it will be.
Well, thanks very much, Karina, for setting this up.
Yeah, very much appreciated. And I hope we can keep in contact with you.